last September the 29th, saw the outbreak of World War II. So come with us now as we skip down memory lane and salute those wonderful war years.
Welcome to those wonderful war years.
Yes, indeed. And of course, a lot of television stations have been jumping on the bandwagon and making programs about the war simply because it was 50 years ago.
And that seems as good a reason as any for us to do the same.
Absolutely.
And so on this show, we'll be looking at wartime romances, Vera Lynn, and 40s fashion.
And there's a chance to win a special KYTV souvenir piece of shrapnel by seeing how many words you can make out of D-Day.
But the Second World War wasn't all fun and games. There was a serious side to it as well. Some people, for instance, remember fighting that went on between Germany and the Allied forces.
But we won't be worrying too much about that, because at the moment we'd like to tell you a little bit about these fabulous uniforms. This one, for example, is extremely smart, and to be honest, I don't quite know why our boys don't still wear them today, Mike.
Well, it might have something to do with the fact that it's a German uniform you're wearing.
Well, I'm sure nobody would have noticed if you hadn't pointed it out, Bron. But anyway, let's... no matter, let's go over to Anna for the weather. Anna.
Thank you, Mike. Well, as you can see, this is the German Nazi uniform, and this insignia on the arm would actually mean that I was a member of the elite Gestapo unit. Isn't that a lovely pattern? Anyway, today's weather. Now, down in the south, it's expected to be mostly sunny with occasional cloud. In the Midlands, you can expect some heavy rain later on, and up in the north, generally mild with occasional showers. Mike?
So, no chance of any hailstorms, Anna? Great fun, yeah. Well, in the meantime, let's now go over and look at the man who our parents were fighting for. Or at least fighting to try and stop, anyway. Martin Brown.
Yes, thank you very much, Mike. Well, as you can see, I am in fact wearing the uniform of the Canadian Air Force, and of course they used to wear caps like this.
And what are the flaps over the ears for, Martin?
One of the most notable features are the flaps over the ears.
Yes, what are the flaps over the ears for?
I expect you want to know what they're for, Mike.
Yes, what are they for?
No? Oh, well, please yourself.
Anyway, Martin, I gather you're going to be telling us about how some of the people made do in various ways during the war.
Well, Mike, I'm going to be telling you how some of the people made do during the war.
So, Martin, have you still got that hat with the flaps over the ears?
No, but if you like...
No, please.
Of course, I mean made do and not made do.
Haven't got any hats with flaps over the mouth by any chance, have you?
No, Mike. With the shortages of raw materials, all sorts of things were used to make things out of all sorts of things. I think I said that. Never mind. So anyway, Mike, for instance, can you guess what this coat was made out of?
Well, far be it from me to jump to conclusions, but I would say it was a curtain.
This is very good. Well, how did you guess that?
Well, because up until about 10 minutes ago, they were hanging up in my dressing room.
All right, then. What do you think? What do you think? Now, try hard on this one. What do you think this is?
It's an old tin bath.
Yes, that's right. And, of course, these were made up, in fact, out of the parts of old fighter aircraft.
Shouldn't it actually be the other way round?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Over the coming 30 minutes, we'll be referring to a lot of events during the Second World War. And to many viewers, they must seem rather confused. Who exactly was Archduke Ferdinand, for example? How important was the Battle of the Boyne? So Colonel Bartlett here will explain in simple terms what exactly happened.
Yes. Well,
In just a moment.
who won World War II? If you want to find out, then stay tuned to KYTV, the station that's first with the news.
So, Colonel, you were saying.
Yes. Well, the events of World War II are nothing like as complicated as they're sometimes made out. First off, Germany invaded the Sudetenland, then Czechoslovakia, they then moved into Poland. At which point, Britain declared war, and Germany occupied France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. We then sent troops to Dunkirk, which were repelled, and so Japan invaded Europe. At which moment, the Americans stopped selling oil to Japan, and so they bombed Pearl Harbor. America now sent troops to Britain. Meanwhile, Britain invaded North Africa and attacked Italy from the south. So while the Allied forces were pushing the Germans back this way, and the Russians were pushing back this way, it all converged in a bunker in Berlin where Hitler shot himself. Simple, you see?
Good. Well, that seems to have covered just about everything, including most of my uniform.
Yes, hardly any need to carry on with the programme, really, but since we do still have 25 minutes of the programme left to fill, let's battle on, because we've got a show that is absolutely Nazi-Soviet packed with entertainment.
Well, I've been looking through the archives and I found a lovely bit of film to set the scene. So, roll cameras and action. Boop-boop-be-doo. Now, Colonel, welcome. That must bring memories of the war years flooding back for you.
No, that was the Charleston. People were dancing that 15 years before the war started.
Yes, but they were both quite a long time ago, though, weren't they? Well, let's maybe have a look at another bit of wartime footage, then. It must have been very strange, everybody walking around in black and white. Okay then, Cecily Fenton, for you, obviously, the war must have been a time for letting your hair down.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't, obviously, no.
No. We never let our standards slip.
No.
We never went out without a hat.
Oh.
Even if your head blew off, you would still find it with the hat on. But of course, it was a great knees-up. Beer, sing-songs, killing Germans.
Yes.
Having sex with American soldiers. Well, it took your mind off the terrible bombings.
I'm sorry, that sounded a bit like bummings.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Anna.
Yes, it was 50 years ago to the day exactly, give or take a month or two, since the British people heard these words.
This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us.
Stirring stuff from Nev there, Hannah.
However, it's not generally known that that speech would not have been possible had it not been for the supreme editing skills of the BBC engineer who recorded it, as this unedited version shows.
This morning, the British ambassador from Poland
in Berlin,
the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government their troops
the final note.
a final note stating that unless we heard from Poland,
From them,
by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from 11 o'clock
from Poland.
from Poland.
War?
A state of war would exist between us.
And now, a song.
I have to tell you now.
I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Poland.
Germany!
And now, a song.
And of course, Nev's speech and many others are all on this fabulous album, 20 Great Declarations of War.
Now, Cicely Fenton, I gather you feel you played an important part in the lead-up to the war, as you were actually on the plane with Chamberlain as he travelled to those vital Munich summit talks.
Yes, indeed.
And what did Chamberlain actually say to you?
Well, I remember about 10 minutes after takeoff, he was looking very pensive, and he beckoned me over and said, "Don't stand there gawping, you dozy strumpet. Get me a packet of peanuts, and not the ones that make you fart."
And did you say anything to him?
Oh, yes. In event of an emergency, your life jacket is under your seat.
Terrific. Well, of course, the Munich talks were not wholly successful insofar as they plunged most of the world into the greatest Holocaust known to man. But for those of you unlucky enough to miss it, KYTV can now bring you that evening's news bulletin as it would have been had they had the advantages of today's technology.
Good evening. This is the news for September the 29th, 1939. The Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain has held an historic meeting with the German Chancellor Herr Hitler in the Birkesgarten in Munich. Sorry, we seem to have the wrong pictures there, but hopefully we'll be able to bring you those pictures a little later. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister returned from Munich with a piece of paper which said, "The films come out of its sprocket holes, so keep waffling." Here's our appeasement correspondent, an adapter.
The Prime Minister announced, "This is the second time in our history that there has come back from Germany to Downing Street peace with honour. I believe it is peace in our time." Mike.
Thank you, Anna. In Czechoslovakia, the Prime Minister... In Czechoslovakia, the Prime Minister painted a far more sinister picture. So I don't think that is a sinister picture, in fact. It's definitely not the Czechoslovakian Prime Minister anyway, that's for sure. Yes. Yes, I see. Yes, Yes, I understand. But I'm afraid this isn't actually Dali Pizza. No.
Mike.
Martin.
Oh, Mike.
Welcome back. Well, we're very sorry. We seem to have lost the Second World War. Not in any historical sense, of course. I wouldn't want you to think that was part of the news recreation, because, of course, we didn't lose it. I don't think.
There are many who lived through the war who will never forget their experiences, and one such person is here with us in the studio today, Sir Anthony Trollope, who we'll be hearing from in a moment. Sir Anthony, what was it like during the war?
Well, it was rather like a waterfall. 1 minute everything would be going well, the next things would suddenly turn against you.
Yes. Not very like a waterfall, is it?
No, I probably could have chosen a better analogy.
Yes, but the point you're making is that things were always changing.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Rather like a bicycle.
A bicycle?
Yes.
In what way?
Well, no, okay,
No.
not like a bicycle then, but things were changing all the time, that's my point.
Yes, so what's your strongest memory of these days?
Well, I remember one bitterly hot day. I was standing stretched out on the lawn, and this damned Stuka swooped out of the sky like an enormous tractor and opened fire. Got me right in the leg. I still walk with a slight limp, actually.
The plane came out of the sky like an enormous tractor.
Look, I do wish you wouldn't keep picking me up on these things. I'm not a literary man myself, but your producer did ask me to spice things up a bit with some appropriate metaphors.
I see. Like a biscuit?
Yes, he was rather like a biscuit, now you mention it. Short with curly hair.
Right.
Coming soon, a major new Hollywood miniseries, War and Men, the heartrending story of World War II.
Field Marshal Montgomery to see you, General Eisenhower, sir!
Show him in, Corporal.
Yes, sir!
Field Marshal Montgomery, Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the British and Allied forces in northern France.
Hiya, General. How goes it?
Not bad, Monty. Not bad. And you Brits?
Oh, absolutely top hole, thank you, sir.
Coffee?
Do you have tea?
Oh, yes, I was forgetting. What? The 4th Battalion have established a bridgehead to the mouth of the Ruhr, and the German army are retreating in disarray? Let's go get them, soldier.
Yes, sir.
You can drink your tea later.
God, I wish I knew how to win this war.
War. That's all I ever hear from you these days, Adolf Hitler.
It's important, goddammit, Eva. For the future of the Third Reich.
Are we important anymore?
I know you need me. But so does the fatherland.
Go get him, soldier. I love you, Abe. You goddamn fascist dictator, you.
With Sylvester Stallone as Squadron Leader Douglas Bader. Starting soon on KYTV, War and Men.
Sir Anthony, do you remember the outbreak of war?
Yes, it was rather like a sleepy summer's day in the Cotswolds.
Absolutely terrifying.
That's right,
Yes, yes. I'm beginning to see how your mind works.
Well, of course, once the war got underway, a lot of British children were sent all over the world. And we can hopefully now link up, and I don't know if he can hear me, with one of them, Eddie Grimthorpe. Now, Eddie, I gather that you were one of the first children to be evacuated from Newcastle. Is that right?
Yep, sure was. I was 5 years of age when my folks sent me away.
Most of them came back to England after the war, but there were one or two who stayed abroad.
Yeah, that's right, yep.
Uh-huh. So it seems rather curious that you were one of the ones who came back.
I say, once a Geordie, always a Geordie.
Where exactly were you sent to?
Scotland.
So, Sir Anthony Trollope, I believe that you were also evacuated yourself, were you not?
Yes, I was a sort of reverse evacuee, as it were.
Uh-huh. In what way?
Well, my wife and I went to Canada and left the children in the East End. I mean, it seemed reasonable. We had our whole lives ahead of us, and they were only children.
I see.
But I don't want to create the wrong impression. I mean, during the early years of the war in London, we contributed to the war effort as a family in no small measure. We were certainly ready for the Germans.
And you were ready for them?
Yes, we had a Nazi flag in the hall, as I remember, and a portrait of Hitler over the fireplace.
Well, with the spirit of appeasement very much in our hearts, with 1992 almost certain to come about in 2 years' time, and with KYTV already broadcasting to over 200 million homes in Europe, admittedly none of them as yet with a receiver of any kind, what better time to bury the hatchet, as it were, than with our specially devised United Europe three-way quiz. Okay, so I'd like to start with a very simple round. I'd like you just to spell the name of your native country. So, Maria, let's start with you.
Italia.
Yes, very close. It actually ends in a Y. Pierre.
France.
Yes, I'm afraid there's no such letter as And finally, Klaus.
Deutschland.
Not even one correct letter there, so let's go on to our first round. Nobody off the mark yet, no pun intended there, Klaus, by the way. And the first round is history. So, Klaus, your history question coming up. Who won the World Cup in 1966?
England.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
England.
England, yes indeed. England did in fact win the World Cup in 1966. And for 10 points, Klaus, who did they beat?
I can't remember.
I'll give you a clue. Quite a lot of people you know live in this country.
West Germany.
West Germany, yes indeed. England did in fact thrash West Germany in the World Cup final of 1966. Now, Pierre, which London railway station is named after a famous 19th century battle? It starts with W and ends in Lou.
Winslow?
Yes, you're not really trying now, are you? I'll give you another chance.
Waterloo.
Waterloo, yes, and who was defeated at Waterloo?
France.
Yes, France. Britain did, in fact, whop the froggies at the Battle of Waterloo. And speaking of whops, Maria. Anagrams for you. Mussolini is the anagram of which well-known fascist dictator?
Mussolini.
Mussolini. Who's from?
Italy.
Italy, yes. Who pulled out the Second World War halfway through?
Italy.
Italy, yes. Who has come last in more It's a Knockout competitions than anybody else?
Italy.
Italy, yes. Where does the mafia come from?
Italy.
Italy, yes. Who runs the mafia?
My father.
Does he? Who won this year's Eurovision Song Contest?
Italy.
Italy, yes. Where do I love going on holiday?
Italy.
Italy, yes. What's my favourite meal?
Spaghetti bolognese.
Spaghetti bolognese. And who has won the quiz?
Maria!
Good old Maria from good old ITAIA, where the mafia comes from.
The wonderful warriors!
Welcome back. Sir Anthony, I gather you found it rather hard over in Canada at times.
Yes, well, it was very difficult for an Englishman in Canada because the Canadians almost spoke a different language. I mean, in Britain, we would say barman, whereas over there they would say bartender.
Almost impossible to understand.
Exactly, and over there they would say bathtub, whereas in England we would say bath.
Incomprehensible.
Yes, yes, and of course in Canada, fanny means bottom, whereas over here it means...
Yes, thank you.
an abbreviation for Francis.
Right, of course.
Oh, and ladies' front bottoms as well, of course. Front bottom.
KYTV!
Colonel, if we could talk now about your contribution to the war.
Bloody Spitfire here.
I understand you had a plan to bring the war to a swift end.
Yes, two in fact. The first plan involved the construction of a channel tunnel, which sadly founded on the impossibility of getting the Germans to agree a cost and a starting date at their end. So, to soften them up a bit, we launched a bouncing bomb. Brilliant idea. It bounced over their first line of defense and did not burst on impact. Unfortunately, it didn't burst at all, and was last seen bouncing off towards Australia. But not entirely wasted.
Well, Colonel, I believe that we can now hear a testimony to your achievements during the war from your Commander-in-Chief.
Was Colonel Bartlett a cowardly man?
Colonel Bartlett was not a cowardly man. Let me make that quite clear.
Was he a good soldier, then?
Colonel Bartlett was not a good soldier. That's something that ought to be clarified immediately.
Was he a bad soldier, then?
Colonel Bartlett was not a bad soldier. I should like to make that absolutely plain.
Was he an asset to your regiment, though?
Colonel Bartlett was not in any way an asset to my regiment. I should like to make that even clearer than the fact that he was not a bad soldier.
Was he in your regiment, in fact?
Colonel Bartlett was not in any sense in my regiment. It is absolutely imperative that that is made even clearer than the facts that I have previously made clear.
Did you then ever meet Colonel Bartlett?
I have never met anyone by the name of Colonel Bartlett. Of all the facts that I have endeavored to elucidate in the course of this conversation, that, above all, must be the one for which most effort is made in the attempt to render it clear.
Are you a homosexual?
Yes, I am.
Although you probably do not remember it, or you forgot, but though it's quite some time ago, we bring you this World War II show.
Well, throughout this commemorative week, we'll be bringing you a series of personal reminiscences of people involved in some way during the war, in a series we're calling Personal Reminiscences of People Involved in Some Way During the War. Catchy little title, I thought of. Anyway, it's time straight away now to meet somebody who's come along with their husband, Tom. Would you please welcome Mrs. Ivy Pugsley? Welcome. Right. Now, Ivy, we've invited you along today for a bit of a surprise tonight.
Oh.
Because during the early part of 1942, you spent several months in France, didn't you?
Yes, that's right.
And you stayed with the family Rambassé.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you remember, but they had a son, Marcel.
Oh, yes.
And now, chérie, I know where you keep your hanky.
Yes, indeed. The man you bonked senseless behind the potting shed for 4 whole months, and he's here tonight. Marcel, welcome. 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 Shove up a bit, Tom. So, now, Marcel, Ivy, I gather, was a bit of a goer.
Oh, yes, she was really up for it.
I thought I was here to meet an old army friend.
Well, I'm afraid she couldn't make it, actually. I think she's died, in fact. Anyway, Ivy, I'm sure you've got a lot to catch up on, so I'll leave you lot to it. A heartwarming moment, always nice to bring people together again. Well, of course, in Germany throughout the war, there was considerable controversy over Hitler's, as some saw it, slightly contentious policy of Aryan supremacy and world domination. And of course, there were many assassination attempts on his life, one of which is vividly reconstructed now here in the KYTV studios. And we should warn viewers that some of the scenes you're about to see are distressingly realistic.
The 20th of July, 1944. The days of war drawing to a close. Hitler presides over a meeting of his now legendary henchmen. Field Marshal Goering, head of the German Luftwaffe and Hitler's right-hand man. Joseph Goebbels, the evil mastermind behind so much of Hitler's propaganda machine. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, a notorious war criminal. And finally, the man himself, Adolf Hitler, by now fully aware that he was fighting a losing battle. His anger was unbridled. The bomb, currently situated under the table, was now 1 minute from going off. Had at that precise moment the phone not rung... Hello? And Hitler not been summoned to Berlin on urgent business, who knows how the war might have turned out.
Yeah! Heil Hitler!
This then is an authentic reconstruction of precisely what happened that balmy summer night.
Well, thanks very much, Mike, for that chillingly faithful reconstruction. Absolutely terrifying. I can barely contain myself. Well, that just about... Well, that just about brings us to the end of Mike Channel's life. Super.
Forget all your troubles, pretend it's yesterday. It's the end of the war, June 6, 44, it's V-Day.
Well, just time for a last word from our guest. Sir Anthony, the victory celebrations must have stuck in your mind.
Well, I remember climbing up a lamppost, dancing on a car, blowing a trumpet and kissing a rather startled policewoman.
Cecily, VE Day must hold similar memories for you.
No, this was last week. And fined £50 for being drunk and disorderly.
I see. Cecily?
Well, there were, of course, two victories. VE Day celebrating victory in Europe and VJ Day celebrating victory over Japan.
Good thing we didn't win at Dunkirk, Ben. Yes. Many thanks to our guests. If you've just tuned in, then the news is that we won the Second World War. And of course, you saw it all here first on KYTV.
A reminder that next week sees the much-publicised marriage of George, Marquis of Stanmore, and Lady Catherine, Lyon's maid. And KYTV will be there for a ball-by-ball commentary of the wedding, as it were, and a blow-by-blow account of the honeymoon. That's all on KYTV at the slightly later time of next week. And now, a look askance with Jonathan Strumpkins.